term. Joining me now to discuss this is the Senior Director of Government Affairs for the National Taxpayers Union, Tommy Aiello. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
All right. Barack Obama blamed all of his economic failures on George W. Bush, but it seems like Donald Trump's not just allowed to say, well, there are some lingering effects still from the Biden administration.
Yeah, look, Democrats are always going to find a way to blame President Trump for everything. And I think if you look at this case, it just shows you how weak the economy was under President Biden. Even after the blowout spending spree that we saw, the high regulations, the really aggressive antitrust enforcement, it really put a damper on the economy. And with these downward revisions, it's not really a surprise to the market, to me, and to those of us that have been following it. It really is a shame. And I think it just continues the lie of the last administration that there's no inflation, there's economy's great, all these jobs. It was all really fake.
One of the things, and I see that there are reports saying that, well, the Trump administration is going to regret this whole crackdown on this Hyundai plant in Georgia. No, the idea of having foreign investment doesn't mean you bring all your workers here, right? Like the quid pro quo is that we let you have access to the market to produce your product, but you hire Americans when you build a plant in the United States.
Yeah, I think it's great that all these foreign companies, they're coming in, they're really excited about the change of administration, and they're willing to put their capital here in the United States. And look, I understand some companies that are foreign, they come here, they bring some of their workers over to oversee the project. But I think once these plants hopefully begin construction, eventually they'll have American jobs. I think that's very important. But look, I think at the end of the day, with all these trade deals being settled, you have all this investment, you have the Fed beginning to cut rates this month, I think we're going to see a real boom in the economy.
Well, when Scott Bessent said the majority of jobs are going to Americans, how many jobs that were created were not actually logged because the workers weren't supposed to exist because they're not here legally?
Yeah, no, it's a really great point. And I think if you look at the data, things are beginning to change. I mean, you have the fewest border crossings perhaps ever in history. I think that's a real testament to the accomplishments of this administration. But, getting back to the data, there are some really concerning things in the revisions. One, continuing to see declines in manufacturing. Even though we're seeing it now, it really began over the last administration. That's slowing. That's great. What's really concerning me are the huge job losses in retail jobs. Those are blue-collar jobs, real people working things at the grocery counter, people working, clothing salespeople. That's a big concern because it shows perhaps consumer spending is slowing, and that's 70% of the economy.
How is it recorded? Let's say I work a part-time job and I have a side hustle, let's say doing DoorDash or Uber, and then I actually get full-time hours. So, well, now I don't need to do the DoorDash or Uber thing, and I turn it off. Is that considered job loss?
I don't know if it's considered job loss. I think when you have all these people working multiple jobs, it still counts as one job. And that's why it's counted in the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate takes into account, me, you, everybody else who's working and has a job compared to the overall working age population. So that's how they find that. And, one interesting thing to note in this whole revisions conversation is the states that have the highest rates of unemployment are mostly blue states carried by Kamala Harris in the last election. Places like California, Illinois have the highest rates of unemployment anywhere in the country. So when we look at these revisions, it's possible that there's, not just this macroeconomic environment dragging the economy down a little bit, but really these state and local policies that are making it harder for businesses to open and stay open and succeed.
Okay, well, let's talk about that because there was an Amazon data center that was supposed to open in Tucson, and the city council voted it down. So there's jobs that's not going to be created there. If states like Texas or Florida or Pennsylvania, even under Governor Josh Shapiro, are going to be more welcoming, that means if they say, well, we're fine with the water use, we'll figure out land use and all that stuff, but, build your manufacturing plant here, then jobs are going to be created where they're invited and not being created where they're not invited based on state regulations.
So capital moves to where it's treated best. That's why you're seeing all these capital outflows from places like New York, where I'm from, to places like Florida, Texas, North Carolina, businesses that want the jobs, that want the investment. And when it comes to these data centers, sure, energy use and water use must be part of the conversation. But by saying, hey, we don't want your business here anymore, it really puts up these red flags to businesses. And they say, maybe I shouldn't put my money and my jobs in your states. And these data centers really have the potential to revolutionize jobs in the United States. And that's something we should welcome. When they come to these communities, not only do they create jobs, both on the construction side, but on the maintenance side, but they pay millions of dollars in property tax revenue, which is something we should all welcome. One, that keeps property tax rates lower for everybody, helps support community safety, police officers on the street, teachers in the classrooms. That's something we should all welcome, but apparently not.
Well, I think we're going to. I don't mean to be sadistic, but Zoran Mamdani is going to run businesses right out of New York City. You're going to have corporate inversions. If he says, "I'm coming for your corporate profits," you can conceivably see a Jamie Dimon picking up the phone and saying, "All right, Governor DeSantis, we'd like to invert and move our operations, or at least our headquarters, to Florida." And you know what? If they pick an area like, let's say, outside Orlando or Miami, I mean, their executives are going to find affordable housing more than they ever could get in New York City or even New Jersey. It's not going to be good for the tri-state area if Mamdani wins. I'll give you the last 30 seconds.
No, you're exactly right. It's really concerning that we have a potential socialist running the biggest city in America, but I'm sure the realtors in West Palm Beach and just outside of New Jersey are going to be very happy with the Mayor Mamdani.
Yeah, if you're selling 4-bedroom, 3.5-bath houses around Orlando or Nashville, you're probably like, way to go, Mamdani, for sale right here. All right, we got to leave it there. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.